So how are you? How's California?
I'm all right.
Yeah. Today's
California is California. I don't know.
my husband keeps wanting to move there, and I'm like, no.
Nah.
No, we're gonna have to have a second car, and the cost of living is really high, but we have a lot of people in Riverside and Lake Elsinore. So maybe, I don't know. But this man thinks I can get a job instant on the West Coast. And I'm like, dude, really? Probably not. And I love teaching where I teach, so it's like, I don't know, man. But
yeah, I wouldn't jump ship.
What?
I said I wouldn't jump ship.
I know. That's what I told him. Like, dude. And then he's like, well, maybe you can retire and then we'll go to Washington. I'm like, how old do you think I am, man? Like, seriously, like, come on now. Living a pipe dream. Yeah. So this is my English 97 class. Oh, I think that's Dr. Lopez. They're amazing. And they're also working on poetry because they're doing a creative project, even though it's not creative writing. I gave it that as an option. So, all right. Hey, there he is. Slowly but surely. I think we're all having Wi-Fi issues today.
Yeah, so.
But hey, I was admiring your guitars last time I saw you reading. Do you play the bass, it looks like? Is that a bass or is that a guitar?
Yeah, it's both. It's two.
Nice.
Oh, that's the bass and a guitar.
How long you been playing for?
Not super long. Well, I mean, like probably like 6 years or something like that.
That's good.
Yeah,
I've been dreaming.
Something for my hands to do. That's really where it comes from.
Yeah.
But I put the bass. My friend was just getting rid of a lot of instruments and just gave it to me.
Nice.
I'm not really that proficient on it. Although the thing about the bass is it's the same strings as the guitar. It's the first 4 strings on the guitar is what the bass strings are. So you can kind of do it intuitively.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
But it's still like there's all kind of stuff I don't know. But I could fake it, basically.
That's great. Do you sing too? Do you have the vocals? No? Yeah, I've been having a lot of dreams about playing the guitar again because I used to play classical music.
Oh wow.
But I wasn't very good, but I tried for like 6 years. I took private lessons. And the thing is, like, it's a discipline. Like, if you have a musical instrument, just like writing, you got to practice every day, right? And it was just hard. But now that I'm older and my kids are grown, I think I can actually pick up the classical guitar and go from there.
Man, yeah, that's mandatory. Classical guitar, that's difficult, man. I mean, it's a miracle if you could pull that off, man.
Yeah, my teacher was super strict. He was like really old school. So when he had me practice scales, I had to put pennies between my fingers and shit, Oh, sorry, and stuff. Oops, sorry. Scratch that. I'll delete that later. But yeah, I learned that there was a more not compassionate, but there were other musicians that were not that strict. So Tongo, I guess we're gonna get started, and then when the president comes in, I'm gonna have him just welcome you because I know the students are eager to hear. Is he coming on then?
Yes, he's trying to join right now. I'm going to go ahead and send him another link.
Okay.
He's just having trouble connecting, but I'll send it to him.
All right. We got another person coming in. I'm sorry. I've just been so eager to see Tongo perform. I'm like, I don't know if you know, but I posted one of your poems in the Untitled Chapter Facebook page and got a lot of love. There was a lot of interest in it. So hey, Lou, welcome. Lou is a member of the Legal Revolutionaries for New America, and he's just an amazing community activist.
Right on.
All right. And just so you know, I am live streaming, and I'll stop when we ask questions. You still can't get on?
He's still trying. I'm not sure what's going on, but I will communicate with him.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So has your mom read your whole poem? I mean, your whole collection?
Yeah, I think so.
That's awesome. I give my parents books all the time.
Yeah.
And well, they can't read English, but I'll translate it for them. Hi, Dr. Lopez. His audio's coming on. Welcome. Can you hear us okay? Oh, trying from another device. Here we go.
Good morning, Jesus. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
All right. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. It happens.
I don't have a good connection. I'm actually at Malcolm X here.
Say no more. It's just kidding.
But I'm sorry I'm late.
Go ahead. Go ahead. He's here now if you want to introduce him.
Yes. I don't have anything in front of me, unfortunately. So I'm just going to say hello and then I'll turn it over to you if you don't mind.
Sure. So it's good to see you again. Thank you for being so supportive as ever. And welcome, Tongo. I think this is your first time coming to the city colleges, at least to Harold Washington. So I always say, think of this as your second home. And someday soon we'll see you in person. But Tongo Eisen-Martin, let me know if I'm mispronouncing your name, is the 8th Poet Laureate in San Francisco. And I'm proud of, I mean, I just met the dude, but I was like, what? African American and just an amazing poet, amazing performer. And I just love reading the work over and over again. I think you would really enjoy this. So without further ado, Tongo, take it away.
Right on.
Tango, do you mind if I just say a few things?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh.
I also just
you were done.
no, it's okay. No. I was just trying to settle here. First of all, let me thank you, Professor Estrada, for inviting me. I always enjoy coming to your class, and you have some wonderful speakers always here. And so on behalf of the college, Tongo, at the City College of Chicago, Harold Washington, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving your time, and thank you for what you're about to share with students. I think, one of the great things that we do here at the college is to bring community members, professionals to talk about their work and also about their experiences, because I think a lot of the times our students sometimes, it's good to hear all these positive things that are happening in our community. And so it is really a privilege to have you here and in this class and talking to our students. As a former student of Harold Washington many years ago, I can tell you that those are the kinds of things that I still remember when I was a student here, when I had great faculty who would engage me and bring other members of the community to share with us what it is that they're working on. So thank you for being here. And to you, Dr. Estrada, thank you for inviting me. So I'll stick around for a little bit if my connection doesn't disconnect here, all right? Thank you again.
Yeah, much appreciation. Thank you for having me. The privilege is mine, Societies wander together like hopeful drops of a virus. Citizen testaments bent on offering me a nation of breadwinners to hold me back like it's a Brinks. I wrinkle the concrete sometimes like flesh. My Martin Luther King permanence turned away from a podium into the reeds like God is a dangerous twin. Black August to the mountaintop balcony on my bedroom floor, they steal you from the earth itself and suspend you in your broken neck from their foolish euphoria. From the loyalty oath of their great superstitions, loyalty oath of their agrarian reform, I return to my mother completely disrespected for peeling the heat off of purgatory. They kill poets like me. Walk me away from my poems, never to be heard from again. In this foul industrial complex of bloodlines picked through a sport and spiritual death of your devil at least half made police become a pretty word. I'm reading a lynch mob shoestrings like they were tea leaves, teaching you how to write about cities. It's the 25th century in the mirror, people. Tyranny against your chump, challenging your chump to be mocked even with a gun in your car. A cubit of needlework spelled tune for the proletariat, the relapse ministry, talented people curled up in a fetal position next to a diamond dying, just another service day in the theatrics of tea house fascism. In a bouquet of surveillance cameras in the property of God. Yo, new blue eyes, courses of water, newly potted presidency of one big shiny coin. If you ask it, animated capitalism and other non-literal boys killing his white freedom. The deification of hyphens, medicine bread and picture shows. Great protesters in LA, guests of our ink, jock kicking roses in the graveyard, DC Mink like a stone torn in half, the pen advances despite CIA guideposts, despite non-African past and futures, a metaphorical but not surreal day in a horn-written life, horn player, improvising king. Like a radio prize fight featuring Shango himself, a real hand sweeps the land of racism. May I return to the ground? May I make progress with the gun? Our mother Emmanuel, they put on music that evening. A swinging type body language for you to drink with fermented $5 bills. For your body language, some applause, my past stomach lining, neither a good thing nor a bad thing, like being psychic on the way to a lethal injection. It'll sit you down with Lady Day. Lady Day leading youth who surrender their souls to Africa too soon. Polity thought floating in the cup of water, she saved me. Accessing my stomach, accessing the love of the American lynch. Coat sleeves wooden and avalanche into the wrist. Our mother Emmanuel avalanche into the sharp keys. Pain, the deal you make with pain. Piano makes sense for them. Laying hands on the world gradually, addressing the bended necks on the streets of the north. Traveler sailing in pain, repeating pain in the north. 10 trigger fingers on that piano of harmony, what happened? Putting 100 fights on every direction, off of the Lady Day, leaning on trees again, recruiting the countryside itself, saying, lay your plan out on this lightning. Make your poems a corner pocket of men. I greeted the blues itself. America may clean my dead body, but will never include me. There goes the poet. Killing without killing. Never mind this painting of your language. May I be a meaningful lynching. A crow's passing. Good and dead by the afternoon. I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt-toothed man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative. All over the United States, there are toddlers in the rock. Now, I see why everyone out here got in the big cosmic basket and why blood agreements mean a lot and why I get shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history or take the glass freeway. White skin tattooed on my right forearm, ricochet sewage. Near I collapse into a rat-infested manhood. My new existence is living graffiti. In the kitchen with a lot of gun cylinders to hack up. House of God and part, no cops and part. My body brings down to Christmas. I mean, the new bullets pray over blankets made from the old bullets. Pray over the 28th hour's next beauty mark. Extrajudicial Confederate statue restoration. The waistband before the next protest post. Hey, by the way, time is not an illusion, Your Honor. I will save your death for last. I mean, you are witty, Your Honor. You're moving money again, Your Honor. It is only raining one thing. Not white cops and prison guard shadows reminded me of spoiled milk floating on an oil spill. The neighborhood making a lot of fuss over its demise. A new legs for a Black Panther party. Malcolm X's ballroom jacket slung over my son's shoulder. The figment of village and new news to a new white preacher, all in an abstract painting of a president. Bought slavery some time, didn't he? The tangent screeches of military bolts and election Tuesday cars, a cold-blooded study in leg irons, proof that some white people have actually fondled nooses. Their sundown couples made their vows of love over opaque piece plastic in both action audiences. The Medgar every second is definitely my favorite law of science. Fondled news clippings and primitive Methodists, my arm changes imperialism, simple policing versus structural frenzy, elementary school script versus even wider white spectrums, artists bleeding in the challenge of watching civilians thinking. Terrible rituals they have around the corner. They let their elders beg for public mercy. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen these kids' heads in the arrows myself and see how much gravy spills out of family crest. Modern fans of war, with their t-shirt poems and t-shirt guilt and me having on the cheapest pair of shoes on the bus. I have no choice but to read the city walls for signs of my life. You know, apparently too much of San Francisco was not there in the first place. I mean, this dream requires more condemned Africans, or put another way, state violence rises down. Or still life is just getting warmed up. Or army life is looking for a new church and ignored all other suggestions. Or folktale writers have not made up their minds as to who is going to be their friends. This is the worst downtown yet, and I've borrowed a cigarette everywhere. I've taken many a walk to the back of a bus that led on out the back of a storyteller's prison sentence, then on out the back of slave scars. But this is my comeback face. I left my watch on the public bathroom sink and took the toilet with me. Threw it at the first bus I saw, eating single mothers half alive. It flew through the bus line number, then on out the front of the White House. Hopefully you find comfort downtown. But if not, we brought you enough cigarette filters to make a decent winter coat, a special species of handshake. Let's all know who's king and what's a light spin of uniform cloth. And this coffin needs to quit acting like those are birds singing. I mean, rusty nails have no wings, have no voice other than that of a white world dying there. Book pages in the gas pump, catchy, isn't it? The way 3 nooses is the rule, or the way potato sack masks go so well with radio codes, or the way condemned Africans fought their way back to the ocean only to find waves made of 1920s burnt up piano parts, European backdoor deals, and red flowers for widows who spent all day in the sun mumbling in San Francisco. Red flowers were what's the color of a doctor visit. There are book titles in the streets, book titles like Hero, You'd Make a Better Zero, or Hey Fur Coat Lady, the President is Dead, or Pay Me Back in Children, or They Hung Up Their Bodies in Their Own Museums. Another book titles pulled from a drum solo. Run Here, Hero. Lie at the hiding place. All the bullets in 10 precincts know where to go. There's no heaven on the other good idea in the sky. Politics means that people did it. People do it. Understand that when in San Francisco and other places that was never really there. I bet this ocean thinks it's an ocean, but it's not. It's just 6th and Mission Street. All know who's king. King of thin things, you know, like America, I'm proud to deserve to die. I'm gonna eat my dinner extra slow tonight in this police state candy dispenser you all call the neighborhood. No set of manners goes unpunished. Never mind a murderer's insomnia or the tea kettle preparing everyone for police sirens. You know, sorry. First, I should have apologized to the souls of the house because I'm wearing the cheekbones of the mask only, like a pill bottle whose name is yours, name tagged on the side of a factory of wrist. I mean, teeth of the mask now. Back of the head of the mask now. A new phase of anti-anthropomorphism, fanning for real faces. Stuck with one of those cultures that believes I chose this family. I'm not creative. Just the silliest of the revolutionaries. My blood drying on my only jacket, the police state psychic middleman evangelizing for the creation of an unmasked and unmedgar, blood of a lamb, less racialized or awesome prison sentence. A right angle made between a point on a Louisiana plantation and a 5-year-old's rubber ball, 3 feet high and falling like a deportee plane to complete my interpretation of garden variety genocide. I'm small talk about loving your enemies a little more realistically. By paper tigers and also gold, I mean, I need my left hand back. Broke my neck on a piano key, found paradise in the fist fight. Maybe I should check into the Cuba line, watching the universe's last metronome. Some call blackjack and say, just wait, just wait. These religions will start resigning in a decade or two. Some colorfully, some transactionally, in a cotton Gothic society, class betrayal gone glassless. I mean, ironically, my window started fogging over too as I was trying to figure out which Haiti would get me through the winter, which poem houses souls. With socialist breakthroughs like taking 10 steps back, then finally trying stillness, like introducing Gabriel Prosser to the loneliest monk. I mean, I remember childhood, remember the word childhood being a beginning. Scribbling on an amazing grace, I rented this body from some circumference of slavery. Remember being kicked out the Midwest. Strange fruit theater, lithium and circuses, like-minded stomachs, the ruling class blessing their blank checks with levy phone with opioid tea, sentient dollar bills yelling to each other pocket to pocket. Cello stands in the precincts for accompanying counter-revolutionaries. My mother raised me with a simple pain. The poet loses his mind. Like the room has weather. Or first girlfriend gravity. Difference between me and you, the madness wants me forever. A pair of apartments defining both my family and political composure. Books behind my back, bail money paved into the streets. Playing euphoria cliche. Bracing for the medicine's recoil. Sharing the dirty deli sounds with my friends. Black Jacobin's underground topography of a grandmother's hands. Psychology of the mask now. Teeth of the mask again. You know, all street life to a certain extent starts fair. I mean, sometimes with a spiritual memory even. Pre-dawn soul clap, your father dying even. And maybe I pushed the city too far. My sensitivities for landfill districting and minstrel whistles, white supremacists on graffiti on westbound rail guards is all overcome and reauthored. Reauthored by revolutionary violence that chose its own protagonists, a muted stage of genius, the garbage is growing voices, condensed Marxism for warrior depressives, underpasses in their pockets because they just might be deities, a decent bit on the Panther name, a merciful Marxism, disquieted home life, a metaphor for relaxing next to a person who is relaxing next to a gun. I stare at my father for a few seconds, then return to my upbringing, return to the souls of Ohio Black folk. Revolution down there pagan at this point, you know what the clown wants? The respect of the ant. wants to interpret pain only, wants to pull a 38 out of a begging bowl, wants me to hurt my hand on this pen. I'm not tired of these rooms, just tired of the world to give them a relativity. My only change of close prosecuted, the government has finally learned how to write poems. Shootouts that briefly align and make up a parable, or parables like white bodies are paid well. Do white men even have leaders? Are all white people white men? A rat pitches a river. It can almost taste the racial divide, can almost roll a family members head into a city hall, legislative chamber. All knows who in this good book will fly me. All I do is practice, Lord. Decided not to talk out of anger ever again. Met my wife at the same time I met new audience members for our pain. We passed each other cigarettes and watched cops win. A city gone uniquely linear, Harlem of the West. Do a true universe. I will always remember you in fancy clothes, my wife said. So here I sit, twisting in silk ideation. Rifle made of postbellum targets made of an honest language. I mean, this San Francisco poetry is how God knows it is me whining. Writing among the lesser respected wolf, lesser observed militarization, Dixie list prison bookkeeping. I mean, the California gray coats are coming, lynch mob gossip and bourgeois debt collection. I mean, it's tempting to change professors mid-poem. In the Chicago briefing, a white sergeant saying blank slate for all of us after this black organizer is dead. Standard academics toasting $2 wine at the tank parade. Bail nothing, Lord. Just nuclear cobblestones, gun line athleticism, and the last of the inherited asthma. Children given white dolls to play with and fear. Facial expressions borrowed from rich people's shoestring. I can hear hate and teach hate and call tools by people names and name people dead to themselves. And no one get naturalized except federal agents soon. Carving the equator in the throat soon. I mean, I'm sorry to make you relive all this, Lord, all this pre-dime monarchy friends putting up politician posters and snorting the remainder of the pace. Minstrel script shoveled into the walls by their elders. My children sharpening quarters on the city's edge. For these audiences, I project myself into a ghost-like state. For these gangsters, I do the same. Every now and then, take a nervous look east. Sleep becomes Christ. Sleep starts going to racial identity. Do you ever spiral, Lord? As the gang age betrayed us, be patient with my poems, Lord. There's so much pain and disappointment to crime. I mean, there has to be. If race traders come with it, Lord, is that my revolver in your hand? You know, better presidents than these have yawned at cages, have called us holy slaves, filled the school libraries with cop documentaries. Baby, I don't have money for food. You know, I don't have a present moment at all. You know, a lot of God can happen in 3 seconds. I mean, not much heaven though, but here's a man before a fight, a leave me alone type character, emerging from the penniless death of a one-way street fiction. It's just a fancy way of saying I'm gonna make it even if I have to drive backwards. All I have is chord changes and 1,000 backhands. Driving the street like I'm choking it. Car full of nephews. Hasn't been a sun since November, and it hasn't been a street I can't choke to death. This city better back down. You see this gun on the table? And something about staring until it all feels stable. Why wouldn't I protect everyone on my death sleep late? My son better be quick. My daughter better shoot first, because we fold for no one. No, we fold for nothing. Okay, the first thing you'll feel is the heat. This lady would tell me, trying to tell me about possession. A drink life neat, what I'm mostly hearing. And most of the world leaves me alone. To breathe smog like a giant, to go to jail every once in a while. When the genocide kicks up in late May, when politicians have too easy a time, I'm gassing backwards. Out a one-way street in honor of myself and in honor of you, if you understand the nature of the world. How long I've been just like my father, one hell of a resemblance says the anxiety of the neighborhood, this is a crossroads or a crossroads narrative, or so much crossroads people get in the habit of turning back. I mean, turn back only to find themselves remembering me, but not my last words. A man before a fight, you'll feel the heat. There ain't nothing to keep in mind. There's nothing to remember. Really, there's nothing to be. There's just this moment, then another, then stared, and it all becomes stable, and the table legs go fuzzy, and Friday's an unfamiliar face peeking in the window. It's cool to panic for a second. Composure is wasting on your worst enemies. People are marked on that sidewalk. You the only thing life-size. Everybody knows this in the wire hanger empire. When the blood stops walking, that feeling isn't father enough to be permission to fold. You better swing one more time. You know, that father of yours rose from the grave and said, just give me 5 more minutes. He said, running water is a myth. It's us who are running up, down, and all alongside this water. And people don't rise from the grave. They not laid down neither. It's us who flip all around their bodies. So beware when the people around you look like they about to jump. It might be your time. You'll feel the heat. And when four walls demand to be four walls and the earth outside mutes, man, don't panic. No, don't try to recreate the earth outside, and don't tell jokes to yourself. Don't even talk disrespectfully to the four walls. Instead, unclench your fist and walk away. There might be heaven if you understand the nature of the world. I mean, I talk facing away from the dead. They replace me with the change in my pocket, a penny that is yet to be invented. I mean, they say, you have to know how to cut a throat on the way to cutting a throat. After sleeping on a mattress made from 2 garbage bags of clothes, I became content with the small gestures of plantation fires. I mean, playing with couch ashes, I realized how weird the universe was. It exists in so many places, so many random things. It interrupts me while I'm trying to dream. I mean, like your Clay correspondence, Lord. Hey, you know, to be transparent, I have 20 books next to a bullet like an old man giving advice at the beginning of a revolution. I've really done it, Lord. Explored the mumbles of my mind, explored what's naturally there, and I found no brainwashing. I found Africa, Lord. I have a future. It takes place in the diasporic South. I have morning possessions, modern militancy. I mean, windows to the South. I'll walk on a missile for food. I guess you will not want flowers for a few years, Lord. Will I be tied face to face with the country I murder? Merge with us, Lord. Our old metal versus new metal. Our old metal versus a pool of meandering imperialist faces. A multiculturalism of sorts. The dead replaced me with a comedian's chest cavity instead of a chest cavity. Hell taught me it takes a violent middleman for me to talk to myself, like stories that travel through other people's stories, a song about a song, a hemisphere about a hemisphere, stories that travel through a conquered poet. Hey, my mother remembers Africa, Lord. She killed on behalf of you, Lord. I wore a machete all winter and no one asked me what it meant. I read 1,000 books in front of the world. What I do is fight poems and sleep through decadent San Francisco prayer circles, watch people play for post-working class associate services or recreations of a governor's desk, ruling class art of utility, playing fine a sociopathic bureaucrat. Today, some white people scare even easier, TV in a basket next to a ceramic baby, wearing ceramic armor, musket, progeny, fantasizing through the art of the poor. Their trendy latches locked before God, black art hunted down like a dog. Hand over my friends, Lord. Lord, I think I'm going to die in the war. Unelected white people in my small house like a blue song of no spiritual effect, or a dollhouse H-bomb, a pony show near dead bodies, apartheid weddings that go right, apartheid white people who give birth to mathematicians, the spiritual continuity of barracks and police stations, a chemical interpretation of a Sunday trip to church smells in their pockets, a river mistaken for a talking river, no autobiography outside of small personal victories of violence and drug use, made in the image of God trinkers who white abolitionists confided in their children about, chemical assurances that they will switch from black artists to white artists, from black God to white God, from black worker to white worker. I think about you cautiously, Lord. In the same way I think about my childhood, Lord. Foxhole Friday nights, most of life is mute. A comedian points out a planet's field to a priest. King Sugarcane, King Cotton, King Revolutionary, the bottle is central, containing all modes of shallow introduction, introducing an unlisted planet class speaking about fevers and balance sheets and reassuring the masses that we could figure out our fathers later. A priest took my mother lightly, Lord. Stood in front of parishioners, re-raveling fantasies about black art, priest reading confidently before I broke him and broke his parallel, you know. After the day, I've never been a poet before. Little brother watches his big brother's friends. They lean rifles on shelter walls. They agree with me and call it literature. It's a simple matter, this revolution thing. To really lie to no one. To keep nothing godlike. To write a poem for God. I'll stop now.
Damn, Tongo, I love it. And I know I gushed I'm trying not to gush over all your book reviews, but by the way, Tongo just put out this book, Blood in the Fog, which is novella size. I love it. I love the size. And this one is the one that I reviewed. Someone's dead already. You're getting a lot of claps. Listen, if you all feel like asking questions between, do you want to do that? Thumbs up if you want to do that. And I'm sure Tongo roll. Anybody want to ask questions? Because I can always stop the stream because I'm recording it. No, you guys are being shy. You're welcome to chat the question out. And if you want, I can speak it or you can speak it for you. What I was going to say is, I know everybody writes about your syntax and whatnot, but I love the juxtaposition of images and just gorgeous, man. I mean, that's why I love listening to you perform, and I love reading your poems over and over again. There's just something about how you couple these images that is just so, well, this is why you're the poet laureate, but I love that style. and I don't know, I mean, I'm not asking for you to speak about your craft, but I was wondering if maybe you could tell the students what you mean when you talk about genocide. Because I think when you're referring to genocide is what we're seeing here in Chicago, you know, and if anybody else has a question, feel free to chat it, or if you want to comment on the poetry, by all means, guests, you as well.
Right. So, well, I mean, you know, genocide is well, you know, like man, the I think the UN definition of genocide isn't bad. You know what I mean? Killing in whole or in part members of a group, and imposing conditions on a people that you know, like poor medical, like there can be a genocidal medical reality, a genocidal housing reality, a genocidal food reality. So imposing conditions on people that cut life short, basically, taking kids away from their group, preventing births. This all goes under the UN definition of genocide. And what you see really from the inception of this settler colonial project called the United States, it begins with a you know, a genocide of the indigenous people here, and a transatlantic slave trade of I mean, that boggles the mind if you think about just how many people were killed just in the process of getting millions of us over here, and then think about, well, what kind of existence there was for us when we got here. Could you really call that living, right? And so, you know, Malcolm X said that America cannot produce freedom for Black people any more than a chicken can lay a goose egg, meaning that a society who is born of a slaveocracy. Also, everybody should definitely check out Paulo Freire too. This book called Pedagogy of the Oppressed is brilliant, and this is his assertion, Freire's assertion too, that basically a slaveocracy doesn't have it within it the DNA to become a democracy. That when you have a situation, when you have a social structure based on absolute power and the negation of other people's humanity, no one forfeits that. No one humanizes things benevolently. And so when you look at the practices, the institutional practices in the United States, you see this genocidal tendency, this tendency basically to deny the humanity of a group of people whenever it serves the political interest of frankly of a white ruling class.
Right.
So this is what we have to understand. And what's trippy is, like, it's the same, you know, extrajudicial killing of us, you know, again, putting these poor conditions on us. Like, it's the same, it's been the same through every little era of history. It's the same struggles, you know.
Right. No, that's
the same arrangement of power.
Right. We were talking about how, because we had Chicanas, and they were active in the 60s and 70s, and they came to talk to the students last Wednesday, and they worked with Teatro Campesino, but then they went off on their own troops. But what struck me, and it hits me again, that a lot of the issues that they were fighting for, we're fighting for now, except that now we're seeing hundreds of thousands of people making basic demands. So fighting against police brutality, fighting against, fighting for women's rights, right? Fighting for immigration, fighting to end wars, all of these things. And yeah, so I put the title of the book. So you did get a few questions in the chat, Mijo, and it says, one of my students wants to know, do your expressions connect to the poem? And I'm assuming when you perform. By the way, you do a pretty amazing job with the Zoom. This is like the best Zoom camera performance I think I've seen. So I think that's what he's asking about.
You know, when it comes to saying a poem, it's really like it's almost, it's more of a meditation, or you treat it more like a meditation than like a performance, right? So instead of like trying to like sell you a poem, I'm actually letting the poem kind of animate itself according to, you know, the various factors. So it's like you have a line of words. The kind of the exercise of respect is to give the line its due, like to allow that line to influence me in that moment and deliver it in a certain way, so that it's always kind of a it's always like it's always kind of spontaneous or improvised as far as like what's gonna happen line for line. I'm trying not to like I'm trying to stay away from, you know, even what's kind of natural, right? In natural, like how personality work, oftentimes we have like a game plan, whether we have an idea of something we want, or we have a general, even if it's a subconscious game plan of like, well, I'm presenting myself as this. And then we let that kind of muscle what we say and how we say it. So it's when you say in a poem, the objective is to relax that. Relax that inclination. That ain't necessarily terrible, you know, and in many ways it's natural, and you can, you know, do all kind of interesting things with that mode of communicating. But on the flip, you know, in the poem, just I'm dropping that dropping that prescription, and just like however the line want to say itself, that's where I go with in that moment. And I got lucky in that, like, my style on the page is very conversational. Yes. So when it comes to like saying it, I can have that conversation in different ways. Because, you know, like they say, the same thing that make you laugh and make you cry, right? So there's all kind of range in that. At the end of the day, there's something about, like, you know, I mean, even to write a poem, to write a line, even when there's something like super deep or painful or, you know, heavy, there's still a little like, there's a little humor in it at all times, just because to play with words is playing, you know what I mean? So what it does is it gives the statement of flexibility to however you feel like animating it in the moment. And the groovy thing actually is when you allow that flexibility, you actually end up making, you can give a tone of depth that you wouldn't even be able to achieve if you was trying to like be deep on the front end. Just by being flexible, I can actually get more intense when saying a poem than I can in a regular life situation, or I can get more haunting saying a poem, or more open, seeing like I'm channeling something like that, you know what I mean? But it starts with the flexibility. Or I could be funnier than what I am in real life. It starts with the flexibility. So that's all, like, and so then all I'm thinking as I'm going along saying a poem, I'm really just constantly paying attention to just like, well, how flexible am I in this moment? Like, and what do I have to do to like reset if need be? And just continue to kind of, it's like you don't say the poem, you kind of allow the poem, you know, and it just, and that's the dance.
Another question is, what inspired you to become a poet?
Man, I just got stuck with it. I don't know. I was just, I really, it just kind of lines just started jumping into my mind at an early age. But now, what's interesting though is it's really kind of a thing, or maybe not that interesting, but what might be instructive is that I didn't take it serious for a long time. It was a long time before it moved into kind of like my central self-identity system, you know. Um, and I think that's a crucial step in anything, because when something moves to kind of like the center or the front of you, well, then you get a more kind of like, from that position, you have a more critical relationship to your craft, whatever it is. And what I could really credit a lot of evolution, any good evolution I made, it can be credited to a running conversation I keep in my head, like as far as just like, what is poetry in the first place? Right. And so there is like, then it becomes a kind of a journey that doesn't need any, it's like when, so I could be good, right? I could have some lines, but until it really moves into the core of my exploration of life, it becomes my, because it's just like, in some ways life is just you exploring things. Until the craft moves there, I'm still kind of servant to external feedback, right? So it's like, this is me doing poetry in relationship to whoever want to hear it, or what happens when they hear it, or where I can say a poem at, or where I can be read at, or whatever, right? But when it's like, when most of the heavy lifting of the craft is internal, and again, it's just like me figuring out like, oh, what can language do? Or what can my facility of language do? Well, then there's a huge amount of growth possible, because it's just experiment. It's not dependent on reception. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in a way, like I was super early, and then like, I mean, from elementary school, even you could consider rap, I had a lot of little rhymes, elementary school, lines in my head for no reason. Just, I heard it and I just started doing it. But I'm a late bloomer, and that it was a long time before I took a stance within myself about like, well, what are we gonna spend our life exploring?
That's awesome. That's kind of in different ways, because we had Matt Sadio come on a few
Right on.
back. Yeah, but what he was talking about is like, you do your discipline your way, and you figure out what your best craft is. And that was probably the best writing advice I think my creative writing students, my students could have gotten. And like you say, not just about poetry, but about anything. Like for me, I think it's teaching. Even though I'm a writer too, teaching is it, and I think that's amazing. So here's
and I'll just add on to that, the beautiful thing, when you can stand on something like that, right? And operate, from that position of kind of like just a life's work of exploration, it actually teaches you the healthy way to engage anything, so that you can pick up another, you know what I mean? That I can have a very good time, if only with myself, have a very good time with this guitar right here, because having the experience and knowing how to relate to my craft of poetry in a healthy way, I know how to relate to this in a healthy way. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
It gives you the kind of the blueprint or the structure or the habit. It gives you the habit of engaging in reality in healthy ways, So it's crucial, even if, you know, even in influencing other things you do.
That's beautiful advice. Stacy has one more question. She wants to know, she says she likes your poem and she wants to know what inspired you to write the poem.
You know, I really, it's like, regardless of what the subject matter is, my primary kind of mode of operating when I'm writing is just to get, I'm just taking a line, an image, a little group of words, and I'm just trying to push them as hard as I can without going too far out of pocket, like without leaving, you know, without leaving the mass experience, you know. But try to just get a little bit more insight out of an idea, extend the journey of an idea, or get a little bit more music out the words, line for line. That's really how I operate. And then what happens after that, really, I can just relax on all the work I've done before I picked up the pen to understand the world, right? So a lot of it comes from, you know, it's kind of messy in here, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna pan the camera, but it's a lot of books, and it's a lot of books that got nothing to do with poetry in here, you know. Well, or you can say they got everything to do with poetry, they're just not poems. So it's just kind of like what you see in the poem is synthesized from what I've done to just study in studying the world and studying what you can do in the world, you know. And so it's trippy in a way. It's like inspiration is a you know, inspiration is I reserve that for just the daily engagement of reality. For me, transforming social reality is the heaviest inspiration. And so I study, well, who has changed the world and what happened? How is the world organized the way it's organized? How is power organized the way it's organized? And what do we have to do to intervene? Through that lens, I learned, right? And then on the back end, when I picked up the pen, what I've learned just really facilitates itself as I'm just trying to, I'm down in the trenches of writing, just like, can I just get a little bit more going here? You know, it's interesting, it don't take much to push it just a little bit far. Like, or you think about somebody you know that's really, really funny. It's not like they've invented a whole new way of communicating. They just take the way we all already communicate or the topics we all already are obsessed with and talk about, and they just push it a little bit, you know? So it's like the same thing on the page. It's interesting, you'll find out it's actually not, you don't have to go that far to really to expand an idea. You know, it don't take that many more words, or it doesn't take, you don't have to go into just a completely different world, you know. But again, the justice of it is, the beauty of it is like, you don't even have to worry about it, you know, like what you put in and also what you learn, and also just what you do, how you carry yourself outside of the poem brings itself down into the poem and gives the poem more juice. So just whatever you subscribe to, as far as just like whatever makes you a more, you know, really whatever makes you a nicer person. You know, however you get that done, man. But like whatever, you know, basically whatever makes you gives you the internal position of honoring other people's humanity and honoring your humanity more. However, you have to practice that. that also comes down onto the page and opens things up.
That's wonderful. I'm gonna start crying because it fits, you know.
Right.
So Lou is taking it up a notch. He says the poem and the commentary are excellent. Glad to hear you refer to the guitar in the background. Can you play for us? Is a request.
Oh man.
You had to go there, Lou.
Did you have to go there? It'll take a little bit of time to set up.
Well, some other time then, but and he says that books have everything to do with poetry, just not a poem, which I think that's really deep. Hey, can you do me a favor? Well, I actually have another question. I was fascinated because I was watching your performances on YouTube and the class that I watched you perform at the cultural conference, but you're one of the first poems I've encountered who mixes the poems based on, I'm assuming, the flow or how you're feeling it. I thought that was fascinating. And to me, every performance I've seen has been seamless. But when I read the poetry, like especially Someone's Dead Already, I was like, oh yeah, I recognize that piece. And there's that piece. And then there's this piece and that piece. So when, I guess, do you sometimes invent lines as you're performing to connect the poetry, or do you just kind of stitch them together? That is so amazing to me.
Yeah, well, I don't come up with nothing new on the spot, but I do take, like what I did for y'all probably was, and I don't know, that was.
You did the cow's mouth one, and then the people are made of saliva.
I mean, just now was probably like 5 or 6, maybe even 7 poems. I just kept going into the next one. And yeah, it is, it's not necessarily the best way to go about it. But you know, cause man, there's this cat in Mississippi named Celie McInnes. Man, a beautiful brother, man, just a amazing poet and professor. You know, the thing in Mississippi is a lot of people don't stick around. There's all kind of geniuses born there. They just don't stay there. And so it's something like really special about a cat who could have gone anywhere, but decided he was going to anchor his people there in Mississippi. And he has this, like, I just bring him up because he just has this beautiful style of, like, in the course of a set, he's going to say a poem, and he's going to talk to you some, and say a poem and talk to you some in a very powerful and dignified way. I'm on a strength and a weakness the way I operate. I mean, there is a strength in that there comes a point where the energy isn't over. And so I can take the energy that's going on and just move it, you know, and just keep going into the next poem. And it's also kind of a challenge because it's a you know, it's seeing if I can do it. It's like kind of like running an experiment at the expense of your entertainment. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, you know, I want to see if I could pull it off. If I could just like run poem to poem and just like make it dynamic enough that it almost seems seamless. That's one of the experiments, you know. But also, frankly, like I don't talk well in between poems. Because it's like operating out of 2 different minds. Sometimes I could pull it off, and I do my best. I do my best to pull it off, but it's like it's actually jarring for me. It's like my mind. It's like my mind gets upset trying to communicate one way and then try to make it communicate the other way. It's just like, you know, stress. It's stressful. So I'll just keep going. But also I think in the Zoom thing, there's also kind of a because it's not like I can't really use my diaphragm. Like so, like in real, not real. This is real, but like in 3D, it actually gets bigger. And I actually need the breath, you know, like, cause I'll just spend everything in the course of a poem, and I need to reset, you know, and buy myself some time. So blah, 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 you know what I mean? But on just sitting here, just kind of like monologuing along, I don't really run out of gas in the same way. And so it's kind of like, all right, let's see what can be done. Let's see what can be done next. But it's you know, it's kind of making a strength out of a weakness, I guess, is what is born from. But oftentimes too, genuinely, like, it's just not over. Like 2 minutes isn't enough, or 3 minutes isn't enough. You got to, you know, I've only begun. You know what I mean? Especially like in the beginning, you know, because you start kind of low or you start nervous. You know, it's just like the wind don't even pick up till like the second or third poem. So it's like, I'm definitely not gonna stop until I get to a certain altitude. That's for sure. You know what I mean? Ain't no point. You know, I'm still trying to get the handle on myself, trying to get the hang of myself. And once I get the hang of myself, then okay. But yeah. And then there's some poems that kind of like group themselves together, like they just go together well. You know.
You know, I would have never have known they were separate poems, like at all. And like I only knew that you may do that, you know, because I've seen the videos, but that to me was like, holy shmoly, you know. I think I told you I was reading your book to someone who needed to hear poetry, and I read it differently, but still that's where I identified. I'm like, oh yeah, look, here's that one bit, you know, because I was trying to decipher what the cow's mouth was. I'm still trying to figure it out. And I'm not even going to ask you what it means, because sometimes the writer doesn't know what it means. Exactly.
I'll let you know what it means.
Actually, oh, thank you.
It's talking about colonization. And so the idea is that so a cow gets used as an image because and actually, like, I'm not the first person to liken colonization to a cow. But it's the idea of cow's mouth is that, so a cow has 5 stomachs. So why the cow is useful, no disrespect for all cultures who hold the cow as sacred, you know what I'm saying? But in this case, you can use the cow as a metaphor for colonization, because more than one empire eats. And you have the cows, who's at the cow's mouth is just the first one in. But then all of these resources that one empire steals and plunders, those resources run through the economic processes of other really ruling classes, we could say, other empires, or people who benefit from other empires. See.
Can you do cow's mouth for us for a second?
Yes, yeah. so man, you know, guided by teeth goes this country. There's a cow's mouth on the flag, a peculiar notepad, whole street life dear, but the writer is not here. He's somewhere talking to tombstones about the good old days, or splashing reborn water on his latest face, or wondering how Zoe Gunn is doing in the afterlife, wondering how much death trap is in those gas station aisles. They got to be $1 million a day on this concrete island. New engine in the moon, why it never goes down. I mean, 72 straight hours of night, at least according to everyone's posture around here. I mean, 8:30 in the morning is really 30 minutes of closing. The city shuts down for a sleepy rat race. Elevators shoe shuffle to the nearest heaven. Laughing with rats the whole way up. There's scabs everywhere, in puddles of city, in concentrated schools, in TV lit warm rooms. The light reveals military fatigue when it hits just right on the ties that are wrapped around the necks of lazy white guys. Empire is too easy. Chant at the walls off something if you feel like it. Let's wait for a target to move a shooting back. Running for a tree line made of freeway. Wisdom says against a war machine on Tuesday, you stand no chance, but may we be the last poor people to play it safe, cow's mouth on the flat. A politician raises his hand and the crowd shows their teeth. An oligarch raises his hand, little kids not safe outside. You all hide, depressing comrades and function. Like 15 minutes of closing and the city has survived another black rebellion. You know, we just paying dues by trash fires, not just anybody can set. Don't you love how deadly things whisper in the moment and people kill like feathers fall with everybody screaming inside? The writer knows that death is not a matter of dignity, rather humor. In a house that smells like roach races, nuclear percentages on torn stoves. I mean, here life never was. It's just lazy matches and mannequin humanity, hands rushing away from life towards those. What we doing here? Surviving for no reason in particular, because nobody going far today. Nobody will go far tomorrow. Trust me. Hell in heaven cannot count. Strange gardens with secondhand clothes play. And concrete wishes to be human so that it could be accountable where they find you drenched. And drains wish to be human so that they could be worthy arms for you to die in. Hey, greet them all, grandson. Prepare for the day when every child is calm, and don't say we ghosts didn't write you a poem. Don't say we didn't dig your life. Remember the shotgun by the co-wreck that everybody in the house knows how to use. Remember the tightrope made of needles for walking in between driveways and man-made best friends. Go ahead, grandson, tune this street again. Never mind, this country kills musicians first. Broken neck night, scar neck light. If these walls could write lyrics, they say, what's your angle, angel eyes? 30, 50 rounds pass by on the street with no daughters. The street has no sons. Just young prisoners of war in a racist city that means to make capital. And we know so much. We know it all. We were stood against walls. Who's on the third cross around here? Cow's mouth, salivating over the street. And that is the story of why we aim at teeth.
I love it. I love it. Just amazing. There's a question in the chat though from one of my students. She says, getting a lot of claps. Yeah, it's beautiful. What was the start of you getting your poems out there and performing publicly?
So the very first, man, there was this restaurant, an Ethiopian restaurant in San Francisco called Rosella's. And every Sunday night, they'll close up the restaurant part and have a jam session mainly for jazz musicians. But if you was a poet, you could come and say a poem. You could sit in with a poem and they'll play under you. And there was this cat who kind of introduced actually me and my brother. Actually, my brother started writing first, and so this cat put us onto it, and that was like the first, the first time. I was probably like 18. Yeah, I was 18. It was like the summer before I went to school, and yeah, that was it. Now the thing is, like, it's just to me, it's all fun dues to pay. You got to pay your dues, learn what, you got to learn your way around a microphone. And also use an environment to figure out where you're at, and you also, like, you come around and it's best to go to places where people are really killing it, because it's like, if anything, you learn what the standard is, right? You want to go someplace where there's a good standard, where there's, like, in order to sit at this table, you know what I mean? You got to be able to, you got to bring your spirit to a certain level, or be able to channel a spirit to a certain, to a certain intensity. But you just show up, and there's always an open mic. I mean, that's how I started. It's just open mic, open mic, open mic, open mic. And then eventually you get to know what's going on. People get to know you, and then they ask you to come read a set, or that, I was around a lot of poetry slams. They had you come compete in the poetry slam. You compete in the poetry slam, you got to have 3 poems in order to do that, this type of thing. But all along the way, man, it's actually beautiful to do it without an ambition. Like, to really just, like, because in a way, you don't want your life to just pass you by, right? You don't want to miss out on the opportunity to you can just getting up in a random open mic and just saying one poem. You can find a sweet spot in there, in which you really find some kind of like your consciousness goes to some super beautiful place. Even if it's just one time you get there on one line, the way you said it, said that one line, you could just feel it. Like, oh, I made it out the matrix on that one. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's worth it. And you want to experience that, you know? You don't want your life to pass you by, and it'll pass you by when you have your mind just on where you want to go. So it's just like where you are, be right there and learn something and feel something. And then you go, then it's the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. But it's just like, you gotta love them dudes, man. You know, a blues guitarist told me this too. After I already kind of had a little bit of leverage out here, they're already, you know, and he told me, like, he pulled me to the side and was just like, turn down nothing, because ultimately it's all just practice. So I don't sit up here like, oh man, I'm supposed to be here. Look at these cats. That's where I need to be, blah, blah, blah. Nah, you be right where you are and just kill it right where you are. Or be meditating right where you are. You know what I'm saying? Get to know yourself right where you are. But that's, you know, the open mics was my path in.
Does anybody else want to ask a question? We're at, wow, man, this class has been, partly because we started late. We're at 12:12. We got 8 minutes left. Does anybody want to ask a question? Or Lynn, how about you? I know you're enjoying the event.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it was very captivating. I wasn't prepared for, you know, all of the string of poems. I was wondering about that, so I was glad that the student asked, you know, how were you able to, you know, it was like conversational at first. And then when I hear you speaking, I'm like, oh, okay. So it was very engaging, you know, the way that you delivered the poem. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. I often feel like your performances are a conversation, you know? So no, just wonderful. Let me see. What was your, here we go. An iconic question, or what was your proudest achievement?
Man, whenever I come up on a new species of poem, you know, that's the thing too, right? So speaking of like how I started and how it's going is way different. You know, just as far as just style and what where I got lucky, I'm so appreciative. Like, there have been points where I was just like, God, please give me a new style. I'm so tired of these type of poems. Would you please just give me something else, you know, to say? And I could I get my hands on it. So, like, you know, like kind of the batch of poems I'm saying now is not what I had before. What I'm really proudest about is the ability to evolve, you know, frankly, because I'm telling you, everything else is there's like, it's never enough. You don't want to, I mean, you know, or put it like this. There are people who got their hands on all kind of stuff, all kind of awards and accolades. And I got my hands on a few things, you know, but the bottom line is, you put one of these people in the room, it don't matter what you got. If you get in the room with somebody like me, you're gonna get smoked. You know what I mean? And that's the worst feeling in the world. I see it on their faces. You know what I mean? Somebody come in the room all big and bad, chest all poked out, you know, because they got this and that and that and this. But when the reading is over, don't nobody remember what you was talking about. They're gonna remember the samurai that was in. They're gonna, you know what I mean? So it's just like the dedication is to the craft, and how you can really and how you can really get down. So it's just like, it ain't even no point in taking stock in these kind of in the accolades game, you know. You just want to make sure that whatever room you go enter, you know, I'm going to do the eating. I'm not getting ate. You know what I mean? That's really that's the best. That's the best feeling to have. You know, it's just like, man, when I'm not like when we get on this court, you know what I mean, or when we get in this ring, you know what I mean. I'm gonna tear your head off. You know what I mean?
In a beautiful way.
Beautiful thing, yeah.
Crystal asked, do you have an event calendar or any upcoming events for those that would like to watch your work? Oh, you got some fans going here, Tongo.
Man, that's the thing. I'm so bad at trying to figure out what.
I'll find. I think you post stuff sometime. I'll find events for you all. If you can shoot some for me.
Yeah, it's gone. A lot of stuff is gone back live. But yeah, I'll figure it out and send it to you, and then.
Awesome. So Lou asks, what are your plans as poet laureate in San Francisco?
Man, you know, it's a tough. You know, I was crowned. When I was crowned, I think even before, like before the vaccine was even available. So it's like the rules was different. Like, you know, I could, you know, it's like, all right, you the poet laureate, but you can't go nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Now the world is kind of thawing out a little bit, but still is like not. You know, and in some ways it's like it's kind of irresponsible. You know, I feel like it'd be irresponsible on me to push like a public line. Like I would hate to, you know, be like, all right, everybody come here and do this with me, and then somebody gets sick, you know. But my emphasis is on education projects. And I'm especially trying to build this intergenerational workshop. See, I have a theory, right? that we need to stop looking at this thing in like the compartments of like, all right, this is youth programming, this is prisoner programming, this is elder programming, this is whatever, this is the artists programming, and just have everybody really learn together and write together. And it worked one time. So online, I was working with this middle school, and we was trying to do a program inviting the parents to do the workshop with the kids, and they just couldn't. Nobody could wrap their head around it until like there was this one day where the parents was right there with their kids in the houses sitting next, and they wrote with each other. And I almost cried like 3-4 times. It was just crazy because as much as, you know, like, of course, your parents think you are a human being. Of course, you think your parents are a human being, but there is something still kind of reduced about the relationship. And when people were writing next to each other and being super vulnerable, you could see the kids, like you could see the kid looking at his mother in a whole different way. You know, when she reads a poem talking about how she's anxious, you know, about like, I'm worried about the world that he's in, and I'm worried that I'm gonna be that I might not be able to give him everything he needs, right? It's like the kid's mind is blown because now it's like more of a multi-dimensional person. And similarly, you know, the parents got to see the kid is more than a vacuum of food and resources. You know what I mean? Like, yo, here's this whole little interesting mind. And also unprompted, because the writing prompts were super open. They were writing about each other. So of all the things the kid could write about, the kid is just sitting there talking about how much he appreciates his parent, you know, which is something that they don't hear every day. You know what I mean? So it was just like you could just feel a depth being added, you know, or depth that they were experiencing. And I think that's one of the problems, man, with this. Well, number one, they over categorize everything, right? So there's just like, they have a kid believe it's them against the world. Like, oh, this youth programming, this youth, like, no, you're part of a people. And so our education processes should reflect that. So just bringing people together, and also, again, like we become much realer to each other when we write next to each other and read with each other, this type of thing. So like an intergenerational workshop is what I'm.
That sounds awesome, and it makes sense. You know, and here I thought I was being bold by doing liberation pedagogy, but that's actually pretty dope. You know? Yeah. So listen, we're at the end of class, but I cannot thank you enough. Writing community, why don't we all just unmute and give them a big round of applause? This has been the most amazing talk, performance, and I really learned a lot and enjoyed it. So, yo, can you unmute? This is a kind of a little, hey, there we go. Thank you.